me just give this a few moments. Hello everyone. Let me just make sure things are going great. All right, it's working. Okay, cool. All right. Without further ado, I guess we can get started right here. Alright, so hello everyone, welcome to the Movieception show. My name is Fariba, and as I promised, I was going to do a Deadpool Wolverine spoiler discussion, and here we are. It's been about, a week or so since the movie has been released, so this is probably the perfect time to be talking about spoiler discussions. And yeah, I'm really excited to be talking about it. But on top of this, we won't just be talking about Deadpool Wolverine spoilers. We'll also be discussing things like the SDCC updates from about a week or so ago. I feel like we got to talk about that, as well as some of the updates that we actually got recently back on Friday. It's been a pretty big, it's been a pretty big week for Marvel. Marvel seems to finally be revived at this point, considering how much the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe has been struggling for the last few years, and now it seems as though things are starting to go into a very positive direction. So, but before going down into it, you'll probably notice that I actually have somebody speaking with us for this discussion. Now, before anyone believes that it's my other friend Marilyn. This is not Marilyn. This is Maya. You actually have, if you go to my older parts of my channels, you'll notice that there is some other live videos with my buddy Marilyn, and yeah, she's busy, but I did bring in someone else to come and discuss the whole Deadpool stuff and the whole Marvel stuff, and it couldn't be better than Maya. She's someone who I've known for quite a while now, known her since college, and one of the greatest things about Maya is that we have lots of things in common. We love Marvel, we love Star Wars. We actually met in a film committee for an organization in college, so what better way than to bring Maya to discuss about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So yeah, here's Maya to discuss the whole movie. Let me just... Alright, hello, Maya. If you want to come and introduce yourself, you're more than happy to.
Hi, I'm Maya. Pretty much, like was said, me and Free have known each other forever. We technically bonded not over Marvel, but over Jensen Ackles for Supernatural. I didn't know other people knew of Supernatural, and she did, because of course I saw the photo of her meeting him, and I had a fangirl moment in the middle of like the bar wing area that we were doing like a trivia night. But it was great.
Right.
But
Right.
it was still a peak moment.
And that changed everything. That basically changed
It really
everything.
did.
That we became friends since. You're actually like 3 years younger than me, which is the funniest thing. And you're actually more so my sister's age than really mine. But even then, we even after college, we're still in contact, even though we actually live in like different parts of Florida. So, but again, it's
Literally
really
the opposite ends of Florida.
opposite ends of Florida, exactly. But even then, it's great having you here. I'm so excited to be talking about Deadpool Wolverine because I honestly have not had the chance to go so deep into the whole discussion about it with somebody, because either the person isn't at, it's more of like a casual watcher, for instance, or they just are really busy. I have a couple friends who are busy. Marilyn's actually very busy right now because she's dealing with some stuff with her family. Lots of good things, by the way. Lots of good things. But I
Love
want her
that.
to have her privacy. I'll let you know afterwards. But yeah, it's nice to see you here. I can't wait to talk about Deadpool Wolverine and other stuff we're going to be discussing about. Again, if it does get long, I'll probably end around 8:15, 8:30ish because House of Dragon will be on tonight, and I do want to watch that. So, but hopefully we'll get to everything that I have, discussed and planned out for tonight. So, yeah, I'm excited. I hope you're excited. So, I guess the best way to really start off this whole discussion is to just talk about how we felt about the movie. Now, I actually did put up a non-spoiler review about, I think, right after I came back from my Thursday screening of the movie. I think it was like, what was it, about a week or so ago.
Yeah.
Since then, I've seen it 3 more times. So, that should tell you how much I enjoyed this movie. Now, I'll go a little bit more into the spoiler stuff here because I didn't get to do spoiler stuff, and here I can actually talk about it. So, yeah, I think the best way to describe it is that I love this movie. Yes, it's not the most, like, it's not the most sophisticated Marvel movie like we've seen in the past before. And I mean, it's granted that that's going to be the case because it is Deadpool. I mean, Deadpool is going to be someone who's going to go deep into the humor and the jokes and all that sort of stuff. But even that being the case, right, going into this movie, I was super, super excited to see Deadpool Wolverine. And that's granted for a fact that even like the couple days before the film was coming out, I was getting a little frustrated because the trailers and the TV spots that we're getting like a couple days before the movie, they were revealing some stuff like cameos. Like they had revealed X-23 in the final trailer. They had revealed 100B15 in one of the TV spots like literally 3 days before the movie. But now having seen it, right, I have to say that they kept all the good stuff in the movie. Like all like the goodies were left in the film. I mean, I absolutely had a blast. I've been telling you, like, through chat, like, in our text, I've been saying, like, yo, I've watched it again, and I'm still grinning. And even to this day, like, I'm rewatching clips from, some of the available clips. I know there's been some, you know, some of the scenes have now been posted all over social media, but I have to say, I absolutely had a great time watching Deadpool Wolverine. The cameos were great. I mean, I knew right away Chris Evans was in it the moment that he spoke. You know how I am. I can spot Chris Evans from a mile away. And seeing him, and not just as Captain America, but as Johnny Storm, I literally flipped. I flipped out. I can't even tell you, like, because, like, the best way I can describe it is that the moment he said flame on, I literally was, like, freaking out. I was grabbing Marilyn because Marilyn was with the, so even though Marilyn cannot be here, Marilyn did watch the movie with me, so she was with me, and we were at, it was her, some of her family members, and another good friend of ours, Nicole, which I've spoke to you about. But Marilyn was sitting next to me. I had a stranger on my other side, so it was Marilyn on my right side, and anytime there was anything anything big that was happening, I would just like, I would be like, Marilyn, like, I'm like, oh my god, I'm like shaking, I'm like giddy. I had such a blast. And then of course the whole other cameos like Elektra, the Wesley Snipes, the Channing Tatum. I feel like a lot of people in my theater didn't understand that one, the Gambit thing. I understood it right away because I was like, oh, this is like calling back to like the movie that they were supposed to have made, but then that totally got scrapped because then the whole exposition came and all that. But regardless of that, like, again, the fan service is absolutely like perfection in this film. The cameras that they have were great. The development of it is great. The chemistry between Deadpool and Wolverine, great. I mean, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, they really put their heart and soul into this movie. And I think the great thing about this film is that it is clearly a love letter to the Fox Marvel movies that came out in the last 20-25 years. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, of course, but I really love how it is a love letter to it. It is something that, like, I mean, for someone like me who has, you know, criticized a lot of the movies from the Fox side, I have to say that just watching this film made me realize that there is that nostalgia to it. And what better way to do it than to have Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman really showcase that side. And again, actually utilizing the multiverse, probably the best way of using the multiverse. And we'll talk more about that in a second as well. But I will say, like, the jokes in this film has been, you know, I think they're pretty much spot on. There are a couple I will admit that, you know, didn't really stick the landing. But I would say that wasn't like a good chunk. I would say that that's like a couple jokes I was like, whatever. But I did understand a lot of the references, which was great. I was like, and I feel like there was a couple references only I understood, which is fine. But because I could just tell from my audience, like, some of them they could not really understand, others were like, whoa. And then funny enough, someone behind me actually caught the Calverine thing. I was like, wait, that is Henry Cavill. But I think even with the jokes and the humor and the fan service, there is an emotional aspect to this film that I didn't realize until watching it more and more, especially when you look at, you know, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. There is, again, this movie is not super sophisticated or anything like that, but I think there is that emotionality that when you reflect on it, you're like, wow, this is actually, you know, not bad in terms of like showing the emotional resonance for this character. Why, you know, we are seeing both Wolverine and Deadpool at their low point and how they are growing throughout their journey together and why they need each other to kind of become better people. Especially when you look at Hugh Jackman, there's a couple scenes in the movie that I keep rewatching. I'm like, wow, like these are some, like this is where it's like, wow, like this explains why Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, why there hasn't been any other actor who has played Wolverine since then, right? I mean, I don't know if you've been seeing there's like a photo that's been going around. It's like, you know, there's been 3 Spider-Mans, there's been 4 Hulks, there have been there's been a picture of that, but then there's been one Wolverine, which is of course been played by Hugh Jackman. And watching some of those scenes with Hugh Jackman where he does showcase his emotional side, I have to say, like, it tells you that there's a reason why Hugh Jackman has really perfected the Wolverine role. And especially in that last moment in the movie where he's like talking to Cassandra or something, is like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm very proud of wearing this suit for the first time. I'm an X-Men. I am the X-Men, right? Like, yeah. I didn't realize that until, again, watching these more and more, that, wow, there is this deep, you know, there's this deep idea of Deadpool, Wolverine, and them going into the MCU and just understanding their arc. And I have to say, I mean, I love Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Like, he has really done so much to really turn this, because he's kind of technically a B character, like he's like a B-list character in the comics, but then really turned him into a major character in the last, what is it, so in 2016, so almost a decade, right? And wow, I think but in this movie, I think without a doubt the standout is Hugh Jackman. I mean, there's a reason to that. I think every time I see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, it just reminds me how much I love him in the role. Yes, a lot of people will discuss about the whole Logan situation, how that kind of does Logan, and we'll talk again more about this in a second. But again, I love this movie from the beginning to the end. The action was spectacular, the story spectacular, the chemistry is great. The ending, I feel like the ending is great. I don't care what a lot of people say. I know a lot of people have been criticizing like how the ending's like whatever, but honestly, I enjoy that ending. The ending's just spot on. I will agree that there are some flaws to it. I've mentioned this in my review that there's some CGI problems. Like some of the CGI scenes do look a little bit, you know, video game-ish, and then the plot itself is a little on the weak side. When you look at it and compare it to some of the other MCU movies, like, yeah, the plot is a little bit on the weak side, but I think that it makes sense given what everything else that we get in terms of the package of this film. Even I was talking about the villain thing, like, Emma Crin plays the villain Cassandra Nova. I mean, I have to say, like, in terms of performance-wise, they do a really spectacular job. I was, again, throughout the rewatches I was having, I realized that they actually are able to really do a really great job of showcasing how villainous this character is, Cassandra Nova, and they have quite a lot of great, you know, screen time in this movie. I think the problem ends up being is that it's not the most in-depth villain, of course, just because, again, we don't really go too deep into Cassandra's backstory and in a way that, you know, a lot of people can relate to her in some way, but again, I think that just comes at expense of everything else that's happening in the movie, what the main focus is, and all that sort of stuff. So that's how I felt about the movie. Again, I'm probably going to see it again. I'll tell you this. I will see it again. Probably this Wednesday, because there's a new Blake Lively movie coming out, and there's like I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna go check it out. Why not?
Ooh, okay.
So probably like around, I'll probably make some schedule up to see Deadpool Wolverine again for the 5th time. I think this is probably the most I've seen a movie in a long time. Like, this isn't like I think the previous record I had was maybe Endgame.
Back, you did see Endgame a lot.
I saw Endgame a lot, like in theaters, right? And I'm talking theater, you know, watches, not just, you know, overall. Like, I can't even tell how many times I've watched Endgame, but in terms of like theater watches, I would say the most I've seen before Deadpool Wolverine was Endgame. I think I had seen it 3 times. Deadpool Wolverine easily broke that. Now I've seen it 4 times. I probably might see it for a 5th time now because I absolutely enjoyed this movie. Like from beginning to end, there are some really great moments. From both characters and some of the things that we see beyond that. Dude, the soundtrack, the soundtrack hits hard. I was explaining to you about right before that. I was literally listening to the soundtrack. I was literally listening to some of the scores. While I was at the gym. The soundtrack, the score, it's perfection. The soundtrack, I mean, having Madonna, having the opening scene with NC.
The best opening ever.
Best opening ever. I mean, that's why I've been rewatching it, because there's so many great moments in this movie with the best kind of way to execute it. I mean, that's why I've been rewatching it so much. Just rewatch that opening scene, to rewatch that, that fight with the Deadpool Corps, to rewatch that one part where Hugh Jackman's costume rips off. And now I feel motivated to go to the gym and actually have and be jacked. So again, this movie, and we'll talk more about the whole whether or not this movie may have revived the MCU, but that's how I feel about Deadpool Wolverine. To me, I think it is definitely one of my top movies this year. Again, we'll see what happens in the later half, but what a way to really just start ending off the summer season now that we are getting down to the end of it. But that's how I felt about it. I went on a whole essay on this movie, but I want to hear you, because we spoke about it briefly through text about, Deadpool Wolverine. We've talked about a couple of scenes here and there, but we never really got to actually do a, voice call and talk about, what your thoughts were about the movie. So I want you to go and talk and give kind of your input about the movie, what your thoughts are. Are there any scenes that you say are your favorites, or are there things that you felt like maybe it could have been better, or actually was perfect? Or let me know your thoughts. What do you have to say about the movie?
So I love the movie. I felt like it was one of the movies that the audience and us have never had that reaction since No Way Home, right? That was the last one?
Yeah, I think, No Way Home. It was No Way Home, for sure.
Obviously that movie with the 3 coming out and everyone's reaction to Andrew Toby was great in the theaters, but it's we haven't, as a society, had a movie like that since. And that was basically this movie. It's I went with my dad and I ended up sitting technically not next to, he was on the seat next to it, but this guy was dressed in the full Wolverine costume, the yellow suit and everything. He was with his buddies, and his buddies were in full support of him wearing it. And so it's just that, bringing that back, it reminded me of when The Force Awakens came back out and everybody was in stormtrooper outfits going to see it at midnight. So I just thought it brought that sense of community again. I loved the cameos. Obviously, I didn't recognize Chris Evans' voice. I can't do that. I don't have the talent that you do. So I was very confused until he took off that little shawl that he had. But was very surprised. Truly one of my favorites. Kept rewatching it, finding clips on YouTube of just that, because expecting him to say Avengers Assemble, and then he says Flame On, because I remember with that movie, seeing Fantastic Four with my dad when I was little, it was just the best, and that's how I got kind of almost introduced to superheroes along with Iron Man. So it's just again, that full circle, bringing back the old characters, and it's I think that was one of my favorite parts of it. I will say, so unlike you, I don't really have social media, so I didn't see the trailers beforehand. I saw the trailer for the Super Bowl, and then I think one more trailer, and I didn't know X-23 was going to be in it until she showed up in the movie.
Same. I knew about X-23 because of work purposes, but I did not see the final trailer like you. But go on.
Yeah, definitely. I was just trying to stay away, especially the whole day after you had seen it Thursday night and me and my dad were seeing it Friday night. We were just no phones, no internet.
Phones.
We're not looking at anything.
I was, and here's the thing, even so, I watched it that Thursday. The next day, I started to see all those spoilers just all over my Twitter, all over my YouTube. That's how I was telling you, yo, just block everything. lock your phone or something, because honestly the spoilers are already out there. And I was concerned about me because like, I don't know if you're aware, but the movie was actually released a little earlier in other parts of the country, like not here, but like internationally. So I think countries like England and all those had it earlier than us. So I think they had like maybe a day or two earlier than us. So I was a bit afraid that those spoilers are gonna leak out, because that's what happened with Endgame, and that's what happened with Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, and that's what happened with No Way Home. Thankfully, like, I think what worked out is that I basically avoided most of YouTube for those 2-3 days, on top of the fact that I also blocked some things on Twitter. So,
that's smart.
but yeah, I mean, remember, I work. This is my work. Like,
That's true.
It is your job. I was prone to being spoiled, and I really was trying not to get spoiled. And thankfully, that did not happen, because I would have missed out on the Calvary. I would have missed out on the Johnny Storm. I would have missed out on Elektra, Snipes, all those, right? All the good stuff. Or the fact that, you know, Hugh Jackman finally pulls off his, you know, headpiece, right? So yeah, that's why I was like, yo, if this is something that I can enjoy, like, without being spoiled and having that full experience, I want you to have the same thing. So that's why I was that's why I was like warning you about that. But go on.
No, yeah. So I'm glad I didn't really miss any spoilers, and I got to see it just like completely blind going into it, not knowing anything. It was great. I will say there was some, like you mentioned, like CGI. Honestly, like, I did notice some flaws. The CGI that got to me was the whole finger thing. Like, when she would do that was the only CGI that actually would gross me out the whole movie. Like, I would kind of like even like turn. I was like, I can't even watch this. But shout out to like the makeup department, because I didn't know they actually had to like put fake fingers on her to elongate her.
Really?
Yes, I learned that from our intern at work. He said that they actually ended up putting fake fingers on her to make them longer to give that effect, and I was like, oh, that's why it kind of grossed me out even a little more.
Oh, okay, that explains a lot, because I've noticed that her fingers looked really long. I noticed that.
Okay. They apparently did that on purpose, and I was like, good, it created that uneasy effect on me. You did your job, makeup department, good job. But yeah, the cameos are great. So obviously, like, I know Marvel and the universe, but like, I'm not into it as you, so like, I did not know that Jennifer Gardner played Elektra, you know, so I was kind of very confused at first. I was like, who is she? But of course my dad has been, you know, forever, so he automatically like said it out loud the second she appeared. We did know about the Channing Tatum and Gambit, so that was fun. I truly also think my second favorite scene was just Ryan Reynolds saying, "Who is your dialect coach?" And I thought that was beautiful.
The Minions. The Minions.
So, it was great. I love the little, as a Broadway nerd, the little theater throw-ins, like Hugh Jackson's missing the Music Man second act with no warm-up. That just, like, I think I was the only one in my theater who understood that reference. Because I did have to tell my dad, because he was like, why are you laughing? And I was like, long story.
Well, yeah, like, you had to know the fact that Jackman is known for being a musical guy and Broadway. I believe he might have something going on too. I'm not 100% sure, but
I haven't heard anything, but honestly, you never know with Broadway.
And there was also
Tom Holland's in the West End, so you never know.
Yeah, that one is Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
But did you also recognize the Greatest Showman, like the 5 seconds of the Greatest Showman that they played? And it was
that was
my
biggest pet peeve. Was I wanted it to be longer. I was so hoping for when he was going through the 20 or something variants of Wolverine, that one of them was going to be the Greatest Showman, and he was just going to kind of, you know, be in the top hat, and then he'd kind of like Deadpool be like really confused, and just like, I really was hoping for that, but it's okay. I mean,
maybe they're saving that for something else. I mean, we'll talk about it in a second, but yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, that should have, because I will say I did see The Greatest Showman was listed on the soundtrack like before the movie was released, but when the movie came out, I was so confused where it was. I eventually figured out where it was. I was like, oh, it was in that fight scene in the car, but it was so brief. It was so brief.
You have to like really catch on, and I was like, The Greatest Showman is like one of my favorite movies, so I was like patiently waiting for this, but it's okay. We got Henry Cavill, and that's really truly what matters in that very scene. I love the height correct Wolverine. I don't even know how you
It's
say
accurate.
that.
It's accurate Wolverine.
Accurate Wolverine.
Comic
Yeah, I
accurate
thought.
Wolverine.
There we go.
Because comic accurate Wolverine is 5'3". And are you aware of like the whole are you aware of the history with that? Like with Hugh
No.
Jackman's. So back in 2000 or no, actually 1999. So we were like babies back then. I was a baby.
Born.
You were not born. But back in 1989 when Fox had cast Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, there was actually a lot of backlash about his casting, not because of like his acting or anything like that. It was because of his height. Because
Got it.
yeah, a lot of people were complaining about the height because in the comics, Wolverine is 5'3", right? And that's the whole idea of why he was, because in the comics there's a reason why he's called a runt by his brother, why he's a Wolverine, all that sort of stuff, because he's small. He's a small but very buff guy.
Makes sense.
But so the character's 5'3", but Hugh Jackman's like almost a foot taller than that.
Yeah.
Like he's like 6'2", I think. So there was like a lot of backlash with that back then. Of course, now we look at the last 20 years, everyone loves Hugh Jackman now. Like he's the perfect Wolverine. And plus now having seen that scene in the movie, like now that basically like, you know, proves that the 5'3" Wolverine would have never worked. Like it would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have it in a comic book, it's another thing to try and adapt it to like a movie, right? So
Definitely.
that really proved a big point right there. I love that they played on it. Like it was a great moment just to see, like just to have like a brief moment just to see it. But as a full film where Hugh Jackman's like 5'3", yeah, I think we're okay with with normal size Hugh Jackman.
We're okay. We're all good with Hugh Jackman being like 6'4", so it's all good.
It's all good. But carry on. But yeah, carry on. Yeah.
I think it was great. It was like, it wasn't even like perfect length film. It didn't feel like it just kept going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, didn't run too long. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't personally feel like it was getting any boring. But overall, like coming out of it, it was great. I definitely want to see it again. I technically have seen it again on like a stolen camera copy version on the internet.
You don't want to talk about that on live.
But yeah, it was all good. So
yeah. Are there any particular scenes that you would say were your favorites? Like for me, I would say like the last half of the movie is one that I would say I would grin the whole way through. Like I think the last, like as much as the fact that it could just be, you know, very generic, or it could be just typical superhero stuff, it's still fun watching that last half. No, the last third, just because you have the corp, you have Hugh Jackman showing his headpiece, then you have the ripping his ripped abs, and then of course, like even then, like that one point where you see Wolverine and Deadpool looking at each other and realizing that for once, like, you know, they're doing something very heroic that finally they're finally able to prove themselves in a big way. And then of course, like after that and seeing everything else, but that's like me. But was there anything particular that you would say were your favorite scenes, or things that you would say you've been waiting for a long time, any of that sort? Or
I definitely do think, like, yeah, like you said, the last third is one of my favorites. I think the jump scene out of the bus at the end of the fight was such a great scene, even though it did look kind of like a video game.
It did kind of look like a video game, right.
Yeah, but I still thought it was great. I will say, I feel like they didn't have to make Deadpool fall in it. Because then he's like, great, everyone's gonna remember, you know, me falling and not the epic battle. I was like, just like made him stand. I think that would have been more, you know. But I guess it's on brand with the character that something random has to happen to him, that he just like falls in this epic thing.
And who knows? Maybe this would motivate him on something in the future. Who knows? And again, we'll talk about more of that in a second. But yeah, go on.
Seeing Chris Evans, and then I honestly don't remember his name, but it's the opposite of Night. It's Nightcrawler. He's the red demon.
Azazel.
When I saw him, I freaked out because that was like, I don't know why, I've always liked him and is it Nightcrawler the blue one?
Nightcrawler's the blue guy. Nightcrawler is the blue one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Azazel is the red one.
Yes, I've always, like, since the first X-Men, have been obsessed with Nightcrawler. Don't know why. I think I, like, wanted to be him, and that was, like, my superpower wanted. So, like, when I saw Azazel, I was like, oh my god, look, it's the other one. Because I, like, it's just, like, the childhood bringing back. But I think another favorite scene of mine is when they all reach the, Paul Rudd's corpse, basically. The little campground. And it was, like, they all got out of that Honda, and it's like how that slow motion
Honda Odyssey
Blade walked out. You see it, exactly. I've seen them on the road now, and I'm just like, oh, look at them go.
but I'm gonna tell you though, like, one of the things I really loved is that whole heroes fight against Cassandra's army. Probably because the score really hit hard.
Yes,
it hit so hard. I loved it. I mean, and I have to say, I appreciate that they actually incorporate that scene, because a lot of times when it comes to cameos, right? Cameos, sometimes they just it's like, okay, they're just there, right? We've had that happen so many times in the past. But I think since No Way Home, I have to say that I do have to give credit to Marvel for actually not just having cameos, but having cameos where there is some sort of purpose to it. And I love that in this one, with Blade and with Elektra and even with Gambit, right? Gambit never even got his movie, right? So now it's like, for all of them, this is their way of having their ending. And I really like that, because again, it's reminiscent of what really happened with Fox Marvel, right? Once the acquisition happened between 21st Century Fox and Disney, right? Everything from Fox is now under Disney, and much of the projects that were in development from Fox were basically, were shelved, right? And aside from Deadpool 3, of course, there's that whole thing, but with that, it's just like, wow, like you at least appreciate the fact that, there is something that they're trying to do with these characters. These characters have been there, or at least with Blade and Elektra, they've been there from the beginning, and they were eventually able to get their ending, right? I really do appreciate that, and I think that's the best way of, again, giving that tribute. And I don't know if you've been seeing social media, right? Like, Channing Tatum was online recently saying how he was saying thank you. Like, he was, I mean, he's been saying how, Ryan Reynolds really, fulfilled his dream, right? Because for a long time he was talking about how, like, in the past he'd been talking about how he's been wanting to make a Gambit movie for such a long time. How he even talked about having a dialect coach, which, again, the movie. And then it's like, okay, but then eventually that got shelved. And then on top of that, the fact that, the movie was never going to get made once, the acquisition happened. And now it's like, okay, we finally got to see Channing Tatum's version of Gambit, whether or not, Marvel would pursue it. Like, I don't think they're going to make a Gambit movie even after this movie. I don't think so. Yeah, because I feel like it works for, like, a one-time thing. I don't think it's going to work for, like, trying to incorporate into, like, what's really going on in the MCU right now. But I think that we do get a really, again, that fight with Gambit against, Cassandra Nova's army, I think that was really good. Like, that was a really good action right then. I really love that bit. It's like, oh, wow, this is really cool. I do not want a Gambit movie. I know a lot of people want a Gambit movie, but I don't know. For me, I feel like we don't need a Gambit movie, especially with what's really going on. Like, what's going on with the more, like, with the MCU right now. It's like, if you give me the right idea for a Gambit movie, then I'll be for it, but I would not, campaign for it. But that's just me. I don't know about you.
No, I agree with that. Completely agree.
So, but yeah, but as we were just talking, right? Like, this movie, it does a really great job of, of really showcasing, again, it's like a love letter to Fox Marvel, because we're not going to have, because a good chunk of Fox and Marvel is not going to get translated into the MCU that we see in, that we're seeing now. Maybe aside from maybe Deadpool, Wolverine, and then we'll talk a little bit more in a second, but even then, right, I think, because okay, so I have to say, I have to give props to the credit, right, like, where they show that montage of,
oh, that was so, that was great.
It hits. I mean, I have to say, because I will say this, I've been very critical about the Fox Marvel movies, right? Not a lot of them land. A lot of it's been more so misses than hits. We've seen that in the X-Men. We've seen that with Fantastic Four. We've seen that with Daredevil, Elektra, all of them, right? And even when we look at Wolverine movies, right? Like, I'll tell you right now, I don't like X-Men Origins Wolverine. Like, I remember even rewatching some of the movies a couple days before watching Deadpool Wolverine. I was dreading watching Origins, but I was like, oh my god, I don't like Origins, but I need to watch it because we're about to watch this movie. Thankfully, I did get to, I eventually ended it off with Logan, so I was thankful for that. I didn't get to see Days of Future Past in my rewatch because I didn't have enough time, but I have seen it so many times where it's like, okay, it's not gonna be a big deal because I've seen it so many times, so it wasn't a big deal. But going on that tangent, but what I really loved is that after watching that whole montage, it made me realize that, wow, the X-Men movies, the Fox Marvel movies, they've been a huge part of my childhood. Like, even though like even the early movies, even though I was too young to watch even some of the earlier movies, right? So as I said, like, I think Blade was the first one from, I want to say Blade was the one that really, you know, launched the whole Fox Marvel thing. I think from what I've read, that's actually what, you know, helped Marvel at that time. Like, the Marvel, like, it's really hard to explain, but it's like the whole Marvel Studio side. Because at that time, Marvel Studios was not with Disney or something. I have to double check on some, but they were selling some of their characters, right? So they sold off Spider-Man, they sold off the X-Men, they sold off the Fantastic Four. And Blade was what really got Marvel to come out of that bankruptcy, and then that basically launched the whole comic book era right there. But what really set the stage for, you know, the impact and the significance and becoming basically the triggering point for, you know, superhero genre is the X-Men movies. Or at least that's what I read, because again, I was only like, what, 2.5, 3 at that time, right? And you were barely an infant at that time. So yes, like, for us, like, we didn't immediately watch these X-Men movies, these Blade movies, but they were still a part of my childhood, at least, because at least for me, the way I had seen X-Men movies, like X-Men 1, 2, 3, I saw them through, like, the FX channel. Like, I don't know, because back then we didn't have streaming, right? There was no streaming. For me, my introduction to Marvel movies was through FX channel. So that's how I watched Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, X-Men, X2, X-Men First, The Last Stand, right? That's how I was able to get my introduction to Marvel. And this was before, you know, the Iron Man, before the MCU, right? So just reflecting on that, I'm just like looking, I'm like, oh wow, like, these movies really did change my life, because now since then I've been such a huge follower of, you know, Marvel comic book movies, right? That's why I love things like, you know, Iron Man and the MCU, and showing so much dedication to it. And even after that, right, since, like, once I actually was old enough to go to a theater and watch a movie, I was finally able to watch things like First Class, Days of Future Past, Logan, right? So, yeah, there has been some bumps in the road for Fox Marvel, but again, watching that montage, it made me truly realize that, you know, they really did have such an impact on movie culture, where, you know, there is now a whole subsection of the superhero genre, and that sense really took off, especially since X-Men, right? Especially, and now Spider-Man is another thing, of course, like, but Spider-Man's with Sony, so that's a whole different thing. But just looking at the Fox Marvel side, I have to say, like, yes, that era has now ended, but I appreciate that we got this one last kind of, I guess going to say, I don't want to say swan song, but at least, like, one last reflection of, like, you know, what that era was like. Especially with that montage, again, great way to add that into the film. Because I believe a lot of people actually cried because of that montage, because of the fact that, you know, a lot of people are starting to realize how much of these Fox Marvel movies had an impact on them. So again, great way to incorporate that. Again, it makes me feel a little bit, you know, it makes me feel a little bit emotional.
I don't want to cut you off real quick, but I'm getting calls. Can I call you back like in like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
You're good. All right. I'll talk to you in a bit. All right. Cool. All right, guys. So, while that happens, I'm going to go on a quick break here for 5 minutes. So, I'll see you guys in a quick bit. But, let let's go on a 5 minute break, guys, for anyone who is tuning in. Let me see. How do I go? Hold on one moment. Nope, nope. You know what? Uh, let me see. Hold on one second. I'm going. So yeah, let's just take a 5 minute break, guys. Hello, hello, everyone. We are back after a quick bit. Are you there, Maya?
I'm here.
And I'm gonna say, don't mind the fact that there's a loud rain outside. You might be able to catch it from my mic because it is raining here, and Debbie is passing along. It's not gonna affect me, thankfully, but we are getting kind of like the small debris of Debbie. So we're gonna have a lot of rain. It's also quite possible I might lose power. So just a little heads up right there. But Hopefully move things will move quite well. Hopefully. So, but but we were just talking briefly about since watching the movie, I was explaining how I've been rewatching a lot of the interviews with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. And I have to say, just the story of making this movie is really fascinating because apparently, like, I don't know if you've watched any of the interviews or at least gotten an idea of the timeline of the making of Deadpool Wolverine, but after Deadpool 2, like, there has been developments of Deadpool 3, and even after the whole acquisition situation with 21st Century Fox and Marvel and MC and Disney, Kevin Feige was still willing to make Deadpool 3 at that time, right? Now, apparently, and this is coming from, I believe, Ryan Reynolds. So, during the time between, like, after Deadpool 2 and 2022, because 2022 is the one where there was that big announcement, right? Mm-hmm. Apparently, Ryan Reynolds, the best way to describe it is that he was having quite a writer's block. They were having a difficult time trying to figure out a story for Deadpool 3. Like, how are they going to be able to top Deadpool and Deadpool 2? Mm-hmm. As well as the fact that they're about to make a grand entrance into the MCU. So, with that, right, apparently Ryan Reynolds, like, he pitched so many ideas to Kevin Feige for the last, in between 2019 and 2022. And all those ideas were shot down because they weren't, they weren't spectacular, they weren't fascinating. And, I think that, when it comes to Kevin Feige, right, he's someone who's typically, he typically has a really good, foresight into things, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about some things with that, with the squeaky, but for a long time, right, they were, like, Ryan Reynolds was stuck. He was basically stuck on what he wanted to do in terms of Deadpool 3, because all the ideas weren't great. They weren't like the biggest, greatest ideas that he could come up with, right? Nothing that could at least top mm-hmm. Deadpool, or even Deadpool 2, right? Because at least he brought Cable, right? And the X-Force. But, yes. And so apparently, okay, so here's the craziest thing. So, about a month or so before the big announcement where they announced the whole Deadpool Wolverine thing, right? Apparently, he had one final meeting with Kevin Feige where he was going to bring up his last sort of idea. And this was right before the Hugh Jackman, but at that time, he was this close to telling Kevin Feige that apparently he was this close to, like, just ask him to just to put a hold on the project because they could not find something. They could not find an idea. They could not find any idea. Like, they were ready to just not, I wouldn't say shelf or axe, but just put it on hold. Like, it probably would have been like, they would have just held on that project because they could not figure out something. Then, and this is Hugh Jackman, and this is, by the way, this is coming from Hugh Jackman's interview with Fallon, okay? Because this is the one okay. I actually did get to hear, like, because the Ryan Reynolds stuff, like, I'm only reading, like, bits and pieces from, like, some of the writing that I've seen so far, but the Hugh Jackman that I'm about to say, like, that one I've actually seen. Like, this one I can confirm. But Hugh Jackman was on Fallon, and he shared that he gave an exact date. August 14th, 2022. The fact that he remembered the exact date. But August 14th, 2022, he was, like, with his kids or something, and his kids like, probably asked him, like, what's the one thing you want to do or something like that, and he was, like, thinking about Wolverine, and he's like, you know what, I want to play Wolverine again. And I think at the time he knew that Ryan Reynolds was, like, trying to figure out, or at least he knew that they were about to start filming for Deadpool 3, which was actually not the case. But he called up Ryan Reynolds. He's like, hey, so I want to play Wolverine again. Is there any way I can be involved? And that basically set the stage for everything else, right? So basically, Hugh Jackman saved this project.
Go Hugh Jackman.
From just going under the rug, because honestly, Ryan Reynolds was having a lot of problems with it. And what's really funny is that even before that, Hugh Jackman, right? Like, I mean, he technically retired the role back with, Logan. Mm-hmm. And he even said this in a different interview, that 3 days before... So he had announced that he was retiring from the role of Logan. This was 3 days before Deadpool was releasing in theaters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually he saw Deadpool, and that's when he realized he made like the biggest mistake of his life, announcing his
Wow.
retirement as Wolverine. Because then he saw Deadpool, and he's like, okay, well. But then of course Logan was coming out. He didn't already announce that he was retiring. He had to keep up with the fact that okay, well, I already said it, so I might as well just stick with it. Because otherwise, if he just ran back on it, right, Logan would have been as emotional as it was, right? So he
Yeah.
kept with that, promise that this was it. And then I think at one point he said that if there's any possibility that he would ever come back would be if his character was an MCU, and look what happened right here, right? Like the chances of that. So, but then, yeah, like apparently in that interview with Fallon, he admitted that he wanted to play Wolverine again. He called up Ryan Reynolds. And, I mean, for Reynolds, like, that was basically a huge relief, because now they finally had an idea, right? Because they were having so many writer's block with, like, what were they wanting to do with Deadpool 3? How can they top this? How can they set this grand entrance for Deadpool to join the MCU, right? And here it is, like, Deadpool Wolverine, like, the best idea ever. And, I mean, it could not have been it couldn't have been more perfect, right? I mean, then eventually we got the announcement a month later, which it felt like an early birthday gift from me, because I was like, oh my god. I was like, oh my god, we're finally getting Wolverine back. And now here it is, like 2 years later, even after the whole strike situation, because now the movie was supposed to have came out back in May, but then the strikes happened last summer, so that pushed the movie to July. But now we finally got the movie. The movie's out now, and it couldn't have been more perfect, right? So that's the whole story with the whole making about it. Like, again, the fact that there was this whole struggle to make Deadpool 3, and the fact that it just needed one call from Hugh Jackman to save the project. It's like, whoa, okay. And now, I don't know if you, again, you don't follow box office, right?
No, but you did say that it's like breaking records or something?
Yeah, it's breaking records. Because I follow box office a lot, because that's kind of my job. But, okay, so I'm gonna start closing off some things with Deadpool Wolverine, because I do want to go to the next topic. But in terms of box office, the movie is doing exceptional right now. It's broken records for best R-rated opening weekend. That one was like I think the previous record was Deadpool, and I think that was like at 135. The record now is 211 with Deadpool Wolverine, which is insane. Like, that is an insane opening, just so you know. That's a big box office opening weekend. And I think that actually covered their whole budget right there. So, because I think the budget of the movie was around 200 million. So that's just domestic, by the way. Domestic.
Oh.
Global for the weekend was around, it was almost 450.
Wow.
It was near 450. It didn't hit 450, but it was around 450. So that was global. Since then, this movie has been making a huge ton of money. This past weekend, I think it just passed the all-time record for, best domestic R-rated movie with, I think it passed Passion of Christ, the Mel Gibson movie. So it broke a 20-year record. So now it's the highest, I think it's the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time now. So that just broke today, or just this week. Very soon this movie's gonna hit 1 billion, because right now I think last I checked it just made over 800 million. So it's already passed both or at least it's about to pass both the Deadpool movies. I can't remember the Deadpool movies box office, but if it hasn't already, it will soon. And I'm pretty sure by Tuesday or Wednesday the movie's gonna hit the $1 billion. So it's gonna join the $1 billion club. It's freaking insane. And now it's just a matter of, okay, where will it stop? I think I'm fairly confident that it will probably hit the 1.5. I think to top Inside Out, because I think right now Inside Out's at 1.5 as well. But that one's of course slowing down now that we're getting these bigger movies finally coming out. But there's gonna be questions of whether or not this movie will become the highest grossing, and then on top of that, whether or not it actually has a chance of making $2 billion. If it makes $2 billion, that would be insane, because it is an R-rated movie. Can it happen? I can't really say, because it is an R-rated movie. So typically speaking, R-rated movies have a bit of a disadvantage with that, because then they lose out on like the family needs and all that sort of stuff. But who knows, right? I think I feel fairly certain that it will hit 1.5 billion. As to hitting 2 billion, I don't know. We're just gonna have to see. But everyone is rewatching this movie like crazy. Even I've seen it 4 times now. I'm probably gonna see it the 5th time. You just said that you're probably gonna rewatch it at some point. So, but yeah, I mean, This movie's making billions. This movie. So let's go into like some of the let's close off this discussion with some of the questions I have. Right. So first things first. Do you think that given the huge success of Deadpool Wolverine, would you say that this officially revives the MCU, or do you think this is just a temporary thing that you may have to just wait off on?
I'm hoping it revives it, but it could be like, they do that one great movie and then it's like, what happens next? I mean, granted, we have to wait a few years because I don't know what comes out next year, but I guess we'll get into that. Obviously,
I'll talk about it. Yeah.
It's just like, all right, you created this thing, you got to top it. It's like you can't expect.
It's like you want the consistency. You need to see a consistency.
Exactly. So I'm hoping it does. I feel like they can do it. I mean, they have it's Disney. They have the money, So it's like you can do it. Just do it correctly and don't disappoint.
And I have to say, I think I've also have to express the same reservation because I don't know if you've noticed on social media, there's actually like this one picture where it shows like every time there's been a good movie, there's the next project disappoints. I don't know if you've seen that image on social media.
I have not, but it makes sense.
It's like a back and forth. And it's like, okay, then we have the last bit where it's like Deadpool Wolverine. Oh, yay, the MCU has been revived. Like, there's a photo out there. So I will say I have to agree in a way as well that, yes, it's great to see that the MCU, like the interest of the MCU has finally resparked again after some terrible misses, especially after last year. There was a lot of misses last year, with Secret Invasion and Quantumania and all that sort of stuff, right? It's like there was been so many misses from last year. I think the only thing, two things were great: Loki and Guardians Volume 3, right? So
yes.
So it has been the most consistent. To see the success that Marvel is getting right now, it's great to see that happening again. Like, I don't think they've had that since No Way Home, basically. No Way Home, because No Way Home did hit over 1 billion. But I have to agree. I think it's a matter of seeing if the consistency is there. Like, can they keep the streak up? The next project overall will be Agatha All Along. And I will say, the show looks interesting.
The show looks kind of scary.
I have to say, I think that the show coming out in September is a really great timing too, because that's around the spooky season. And I have to say, like, it does feel like I was getting a little bit of Hocus Pocus vibes, but I think it looks really intriguing. Like, I will be watching it, so I will be doing reactions for those, by the way. But I have to say, Agatha All Along looks really interesting. Plus, again, it's really connected to the Wanda thing, and with WandaVision, like, because we do get like bits and pieces of Wanda, not like we see Elizabeth Olsen. I truly believe she will show up. I swear, I think she will be in it at some point, maybe at the end, like a whole freaking cameo or something. But I think she's coming back. But I honestly, I think that Agatha All Along looks like a really intriguing concept. After seeing that first trailer, it looks really interesting. So if that show can at least do something, I think that will extend the streak. The official next movie, because now Deadpool Wolverine is the only MCU movie we're getting this year. That's official. We're not getting anything else beyond Deadpool Wolverine. That's the one and only thing we're getting this year. The next Marvel movie that we're gonna get is gonna be in February of next year with Captain America: Brave New World.
Yes.
I will tell you, I'm a bit skeptical. Not because of Sam taking over. It's more so because of the production problems that I've had with this movie. Because I don't know if you're aware, but Brave New World had to do extensive reshoots the last couple months because the movie, like, probably, I don't know, maybe the test screens weren't that great or something, but but it is known that they had to do extensive reshoots. So that was one thing. Then I think that movie itself got pushed a couple of times. So that's another thing. I will say, having seen the trailer, like, it doesn't look too bad. It definitely gives off like Winter Soldier vibes. And then seeing Harrison Ford as the president. Yeah. And then seeing a snippet of Red Hulk is really cool. But I will keep my reservations with that just because I have to see it to really see if it's actually really good follow-up. because this is technically like a follow-up to Falcon and the Winter Soldier than more so being a follow-up to Civil War, but I have to see this consistency. So I think if that movie can move things along on top of, because Fantastic Four comes out next year as well, and so does Blade, if Blade even gets made. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that later, but if Captain America Brave New World can keep up with that consistency, then maybe we are in a time where it is a revival for the MCU. So, but we'll have to see, right? We won't know for another 7-8 months because the movie doesn't come out until February. So, but that was one question I had. I have two more. So, so we just talked about box office, right? Mm-hmm. With that in mind, let's actually combine both these questions. One being, do you think we're gonna have a Deadpool 4? And then the second question is, do you think that we're ever gonna see Hugh Jackman play Wolverine again? So those are my two final questions. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, until he's 90, it was obvious. Like, it just has to happen. He has to come back. He has to come back. I feel like.
But what do you really think? You know?
I feel like if he does, it wouldn't be like a movie of him. It would be like, again, another cameo kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That would be my only thing of just if he did come back, or if like, if anything, because I'm pretty sure you saw it. Also, I could have seen a lie. But I saw this thing that after the Marvels, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, she gets, I don't even remember her name, but she gets sent, and then we see like
Monica?
Photon, thank you. At the end credits, Photon, and then Beast comes out.
Yeah, and it's like Kelsey Grammer, so the original X-Men Beast.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then they said that, all right, so that's the same timeline as Deadpool Wolverine, because it's the same Earth. And I was like, hold on. How are we connecting these two? So I don't know. I feel like if it comes to that, maybe like somehow he'll come back, and especially with this multiverse, anything can happen. But I feel like we need to connect I feel like that in that scenario. So for Deadpool 4, I don't know. I feel like Ryan Reynolds could do it, but I feel like Ryan Reynolds also has to wait on everything else that's going on with Marvel. Again, he could probably be in like the new Avengers movies of like a cameo or something, just kind of like there, and then they kind of like, who are you, you know? But I mean, yeah, we'll have to see. But I think if anything, it will be cameos for the two of them.
I'll agree with a lot of the assessment that you made. So in terms of the Hugh Jackman thing, I think that I will say this, right? I think Kevin Feige spoke about this about a couple days before the movie came out, and he himself, because now there has been that conversation about whether or not, you know, will we get a new Wolverine, right? Will we have someone taking over Jackman's Wolverine, and has there been a search for that? And I believe in one of his interviews he said that, you know, they will look into it, but as of right now, it's not something that they're thinking about immediately. So, having heard that, you know, that response, it makes me think that, you know, we probably might see Hugh Jackman return as Wolverine in the future, because I feel like, again, having seen the movie, right, and having seen how much this movie has made in the box office, like, why would you lose the opportunity to continue off with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, especially after, like, again, having seen Deadpool Wolverine, and in the end of the movie, they even, so 100B15 even said, like, you know, because originally speaking, that timeline was going to die, because the anchor being, you know, Wolverine dies, right? And because of the fact that he dies, now the universe dies, right? The universe is going to be extinct very soon. But probably because of the fact that, you know, Deadpool brought in this other Wolverine to his dimension, that suddenly changed the course of, 1005, something like that. Yeah. So with that, it makes me think that, okay, that means that Wolverine might still be around. And technically speaking, if you think about it, since that movie's taking place in 2024, there's 2 Wolverines and 2 Lauras. I don't know if you realize that.
Laura?
X-23.
Thank you.
So what was I saying? So yeah, so technically speaking, at that point, there's 2 Wolverines and 2 X-23s, because Wolverine doesn't die in Logan until 2029. this is why I did a rewatch. This is why I did a rewatch.
Oh.
Because he doesn't die until 2029, and that's why we see Deadpool go into the future trying to bury out, like, we saw that in the opening sequence, right? So, yeah. So I think with the Bee Hunter 20, like, that whole discovery with, you know, the timeline being once again, you know, being alive and all that sort of stuff, I think that just because of the fact that, you know, Deadpool brought this version of Wolverine, that may have just actually, you know, the anchor being is technically no longer dead, right? So I think that's kind of reminiscent of, like, what this could mean for Hugh Jackman's future, like whether or not he's gonna make more appearances. So I would say, again, till he's 90, right? but it's a question of, okay, is this legitimately going to happen? I think it's quite possible. Again, if there's gonna be any case for that, it's probably gonna be the Avengers movies, because we have Doomsday, and then we also have Secret Wars, and we know, at least with the whole Fantastic Four situation, they're actually in a different universe, so they're not in the sacred timeline. So anything's possible. I think that we might see Wolverine in there, or heck, I would not even be surprised if we see a bit of him beyond that, because there is kind of this whole discussion about how, you know, it might become the mutant era moving forward, so we actually might get a bit more of the X-Men stuff. There's been rumors about there being an X-Men movie, we'll talk about in a bit, but yeah, I think that we might see more of Hugh Jackman in the future. It's just a matter of when it's that gonna happen, right? So I think we will see Hugh Jackman more, especially because I feel like when you look at the interviews and when you look at the movie, you can see how much fun he's having. I have not seen him this excited for Wolverine in like a long time. He's having such a blast. I mean, yeah, one of the things that, you know, the drawbacks for it is that he has to keep up with his workout because he's 55. It's not that hard to keep up with a bod like that, right? So yes, there is that, you know, that drawback where, like, it does become a bit of a strain for someone like Hugh Jackman at his age, at 55, but again, when you look at this movie, when you look at the behind the scenes, like, I swear, like, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are dropping a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, interviews, everything. You're seeing how much fun they're having. Like, I've not seen these two guys have such a blast in, like, a long time. And I think after seeing the reception with this movie, I would not be surprised if, like, I feel like Reynolds might come back as Deadpool for sure. Like, I'll talk about Deadpool 4 in a second, but as for Hugh Jackman, because I think that's more of, like, the gray areas. Like, would he come back and play this role again? I think now, having seen just the, you know, the aftermath of it, and just the success and the immense success, and then what this meant for so many people who's been following up with Wolverine, I think that it's very possible that we might see him again, you know? So that's my take on it. As for Deadpool 4, will we have a Deadpool 4? Very complicated response to that, because, again, recently Ryan Reynolds talked about this. I believe it was on Fallon. He was asked, would there be a Deadpool 4? And his response was that he would need to be broke before he even considers doing a Deadpool 4, or the fact that Blake Lively might even divorce him or something. And it's like, okay. So, as of right now, Ryan Reynolds is not thinking about Deadpool 4. Probably because of how, you know, arduous, you know, Deadpool 3 was, and just the whole process behind that. Now, again, having now learned a little bit more of, like, what happened in between Deadpool 2 and Deadpool 3 filming, it's like, okay, I can see why he's like, he doesn't want to consider Deadpool 4 right now, because of, again, so much of that, you know, the hard work, and then just all the trials and tribulations that happen on top of, you know, getting to that point, and then eventually, you know, Hugh Jackman. But would it eventually happen? Like, what, like, do we think that maybe in the future, maybe it might happen? I would say very likely, because, again, this movie is making so much money. It's becoming one of the few R-rated movies to hit 1 billion. It's going to hit 1 billion. Let's be honest. It's going to hit 1 billion. But the question of, okay, well, you know, I will say this, okay? So the fact that this movie is making so much money, Marvel would be stupid not to make another movie with Deadpool and Wolverine, right? Because they're seeing, because here's the thing, when you have a movie that's making so much money, so much potential, and doing things in a way that is exceeding expectations, especially given some of, like, you know, given some of the conditions and everything like that, it's like, okay, well, we gotta make more, right? That's gonna be the Disney mentality. That's gonna be just about
Yep.
any studio's mentality, right? So I think with that, I think a Deadpool 4 is likely, just maybe not right now. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I would say not within between now and up until Secret Wars. I don't think it's gonna be discussion in between that, because I think right now.
Not.
Definitely not, because I think right now there's something else in motion in between this period. Maybe after Secret Wars, we might consider something, right? So that's my take on that. So, but yeah, I think that basically wraps up the whole discussion about Deadpool Wolverine right here, because we actually went a whole like hour on this. Oh wow, that's great. See, this is why I needed to have a discussion, because I know I wanted to touch a lot of things, and I know you had some things to say. But before we shift to our next topic, is there anything else you want to comment about, say anything else that you feel like you want to just mention, like maybe that we didn't mention before as we were talking?
So I don't know if you've caught on to this, but I think you might have, because you've seen it 4 times. But I actually, again, shout out to the internet work. He's the one who told me about it and reminded me. In the scene where he's talking to Happy at the beginning, there's a photo in the background of Tony
With Peter?
With Peter.
Yeah.
But did you notice how they cut out where Peter's being blocked the whole time?
Yeah.
Because technically he was forgotten.
Yeah.
That was...
I noticed that, yeah.
When I realized that, when like the intern told me, I was like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot that whole thing. Which then, leads into the whole Doomsday.
Yeah.
Is like, great, how is this all going to work out? So.
Oh, man, we're going to talk about Doomsday. Yeah, so what a way to shift into Doomsday, because now we're going to talk about SDCC, because again, what a big week for Marvel. First, Deadpool Wolverine comes out that Thursday, and then 2 days later, SDCC. I would say that I actually did do a quick video on this, like, literally an hour after the whole reveal, like even after my conversation with you, and I'll explain that in a second. But I did do a video. I talked about the whole RDJ thing, because that was like the headline news. RDJ is coming back, but not as Iron Man, but as Doctor Doom, right? That blew up the internet. I was working at that time, but I was working helping out that event. So I was watching the whole, not watching, but I was, I was getting the updates on the Hall H, Marvel Studio stuff. It was originally going to be that they were going to do like 3 movies. So of course the 3 movies were Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts, we still don't have an actual full title yet, and then Fantastic Four. So we got some of those updates. The actual like first like 40 to 50 minutes of that panel was, it was slow. I mean, there was nothing too big aside from maybe some new details from for Captain America: Brave New World and the title for Fantastic Four. And then of course they jump into the Avengers stuff, which we all expected, right? Because that was the big question. Okay, so because we knew what happened with the Jonathan Majors thing, like, are we still keeping with Kang Dynasty? It looked like they had taken out the Kang Dynasty from the title, because then there was reports about that. So then the Russo brothers came in. That one was we kind of already knew, because a week before it was reported that the Russo brothers were coming back. So not a surprise there. Now it's confirmed. Then we get the title for Avengers 5, which is now going from Kang Dynasty to Doomsday, which is like, whoa, that means we're going to have Doctor Doom, right? And then, of course, what a way to end the event than to reveal who Doctor Doom is. And it's none other than RDJ. And then that was when I literally was flipping out. I was in my living room by myself. I was in the living room by myself, eating my dinner as I'm following up on this. I'm having a chat with my colleagues, and then suddenly I hear RDJ's Doctor Doom. I'm like, what the frick? And then I'm like having an excited but confused reaction, and I was like, yo, I need to call someone, because I cannot just, I need to call. And then I tried calling you first. You weren't picking up, so then I called my buddy Marilyn. She would eventually need to know, because she was going to know at some point. And I was like, yo, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And I told her a thing. And then you called. Eventually, I was like, okay, hold on. I got to go talk to Maya. And she's like, yeah, cool. And then I talked to you, told you, and your reaction was like, huh? And then your dad's reaction was like, huh? So, And then it was a brief conversation, of course. We talked like maybe about 10, 15 minutes. And then that's when I did my video and then all that sort of stuff. And now it's been a week since we've all processed it. We've now been reading about it. There's been so many stories out there about, okay, what this could mean for Doomsday, what this could mean for RDJ's return. Why is he returning? Do you think this was out of desperation, or do you think that this was the best move? Or so having now, processed this for about a week now, like, what are your thoughts about the whole Doomsday? So the change to Doomsday plus with RDJ coming back.
I mean, the change, I feel like, it was kind of expected of what they were going to do because of the whole allegations of everything and all that. Changing it to Doomsday, I realized, like, I didn't know who Doctor Doom was, only by, I think he's in, like, the Universal Spider-Man ride. I think that's, like...
Really?
When I realized...
You didn't watch Fantastic Four?
See, I think I did, and then I forget. My dad told me I've watched all of them. My dad was like, yeah, he was in Fantastic Four. I was like, oh, okay. My brain forgets things, but...
Okay.
yeah. But, like, my main thing was like, oh, yeah, he's in the ride. But I think it's going to be cool with the whole it being RDJ thing. I just think that's... I mean, I've heard the comments, and I know people say they're just trying to bring it back to get people's attention. With, because it's like Iron Man started it all kind of thing. But I think it's interesting when you look at the storyline of just like the multiverse in general. Of just like how...
I agree, by the way. I agree. Keep on going.
Of just like how they chose him to do it. Because again, it's like, you said it. Well, you're the one who told me, and then again, everyone on the internet has been saying, like, you see yourself, you've been the hero, you see yourself long enough to become the villain, kind of thing. Yeah, and
that's what I sent you, the text. I'm like, yo, this is
So I think that's exactly what's happening in that way. It's gonna be good for the multiverse, just to see like, all right, what are we gonna do with it? How is this gonna tie into everything? What else can they do? Because technically, like, once they opened up that gate of the multiverse existing in general, they can pretty much do anything, and all of it can be canon. So
and I have to agree on that. I think you perfectly said this. I think, and I will say, I want to add to this, like for me now, having now processed it, I think that again the whole shift may have been necessary, just because when we look at the past few movies that and even shows, right, the shows and content that we've gotten so far in terms of the multiverse, there have been some hits, there have been some misses, but I would say that overall, just understanding the concept or just trying to get the conception of multiverse has been very all over the place. I guess you can say it just hasn't been very consistent, and it's just like, I want some, backstory about what the multiverse is and what it means, and it's just like there hasn't been enough content to really provide that. And now that's not to say that so now again, this was mentioned in Deadpool Wolverine. They're like, oh, the multiverse is not working, blah, blah, blah. And I will say that, okay, yeah, somewhat in a way that's true, but we didn't have a lot of projects or movies that were focused on the multiverse. We actually only had relatively few. So we had Multiverse of Madness, we've had Loki for sure, we've had No Way Home, and then Quantumania, and I think there was one more that I can't, and then I think you can count Deadpool Wolverine in this case. I think there's one more before that, but so there have been some hit and misses. Like for me, No Way Home, Deadpool, and Loki. I think Loki is probably the best show. I think that's the best project so far that's really gone deep into the whole multiverse stuff. And I think that one is what really sets... I think that really sets the standard of what's going to happen moving forward, especially because I think with Loki, that helps Deadpool Wolverine so much. Like, we hear bits and pieces of Loki in Deadpool Wolverine, so I think Loki is the one that may have actually saved the whole multiverse, storyline right there, because had it not been for that... Because I will say this, I think that there was attempts to try and keep the multiverse story as the main big thing. The make it or break it was Quantumania. Let me just say this. I think the make it or break it was Quantumania last year. And that was for me. I was like, yo, this is going to be the make it or break it for me. If this movie can somehow showcase the multiverse in a way that, it will help set up Avengers 5, then I'm sold. Unfortunately, Quantumania did not do that. Like, I cannot even tell you how much I was disappointed with that movie. It did so little to really explain the multiverse, let alone like the story itself was just so disappointing. I have not seen Quantumania since then. Let me just tell you that. I've only seen it once in theaters, and that's it. I have not even seen snippets or clips of it. That tells you how much Quantumania disappointed me, and since then, that's really made me feel so sad about, like, you know, the whole execution of the multiverse, because it's just like, okay, if Quantumania can't even do this, then how are we supposed to move forward, right? And of course, this was like, Quantumania came months before the whole Jonathan Majors thing, right? And I have to say that I think once the whole Jonathan Majors things happened, that changed everything. But I will say at least that what keeps the multiverse story going is what happened in Loki Season 2. I think Loki Season 2 really may have just saved a whole chunk of, you know, trying to continue off with that multiverse story, because we are still having it. I think that's still going to happen, like, that's still going to be around, because, again, we're going to have Fantastic Four. That's going to be a whole different universe. Then we're going to have, you know, Avengers Doomsday with RDJ now being the villain. It's like, okay, so as long as that we have Loki to kind of keep this glue together, then we actually might be fine. Because Loki Season 2, like, Loki Season 2, I mean, Season 2 really was glorious. Best way to describe it. Glorious, right? Like, you've seen Loki Season 2, right?
No.
Oh my god. Honey, you gotta watch it. It's so good.
I know.
It's so good. Like, it's so much better than Season 1. Like, Season 1 was good, but Season 2 really took it up a notch. Like, much better than Season 1. And that one, again, Season 2 is the reason why that we had Deadpool Wolverine. Like, I don't know if you understood some bits of that. Like, I don't know if you knew what happened at the ending of Loki Season 2, but because of the ending of Season 2, that sets up...
I do know of the ending. I will say that.
So, because of the ending of Loki Season 2, that's what allows Deadpool Wolverine to happen. Even, like, you even hear Paradox saying, like, we used to prune these branches before, but now, you know, we can't do that anymore. So it's like, okay, that's a reference to what happened in Loki Season 2, right? So I think with Loki Season 2, I think that's going to set the rest of the course for the multiverse saga. And with what movies that we have left, to set up Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars in that case. So for me, I would say that, yes, like, a lot of people are saying that, like, oh, the multiverse, now we're pivoting. It's like, we're not necessarily pivoting. It's just that we're no longer relying on Kang as our main, our end game now. It's now, we're now shifting that to Doomsday. So then, this is now my question into, like, okay, well, Doomsday, I think, while initially I thought it may have been a desperation, I think now having read more and more about it and realizing why this would actually work, I agree. I think that now looking into the whole idea of RDJ coming back, but not as Iron Man, but as Doctor Doom, right? Like, I think that's a very interesting concept, because we've not seen that before, for one thing. And we still don't know whether or not if this is actually Victor Von Doom, or if this is a Tony Stark variant who, instead of becoming the hero, became the villain, right? And you know how we have those what if series where it's like, what if? I feel like that was kind of how they ideated this. It's like, what if, right? It's like, what if, you know, Iron Man became a villain or something? Or what if? It's like, okay, for me, I feel like that's kind of how this idea happened. It's like, okay, maybe they were trying to figure out some ideas for what if, and maybe this may have popped up, because we've seen a situation where, because if you've seen What If, like, I haven't seen all of Season 2 yet, but I've seen all of Season 1, and there was like one case where, you know, what if, you know, T'Challa became, you know, Star-Lord instead of Peter Quill, right? If that is able to happen, then why can't we see Tony Stark become Doctor Doom? And I think that may have been how this idea was conceptualized. And I think that with that idea, I think that it would be very interesting to see, like instead of seeing, like, you know, Iron Man as a hero, let's see him as a villain. And again, we've seen the memes and all that sort of stuff. It seems like a really intriguing idea, especially now that we look at RDJ as now an Oscar winner, because before he was an Oscar winner, now he's an Oscar winner. No wonder he's getting $100 million just to make Doomsday and Secret Wars. Why he's getting private security, why he's getting a jet now. So I would say that it does seem like a really intriguing concept. I will keep my mind open to it. I think that there is some potential to it, and I can't even imagine what would happen when we see, you know, this Iron Man. Like I think this is Tony Stark variant. I think that's what it is. I think it is a Tony Stark variant. And if this is a Tony Stark variant, like I can't even imagine what would happen if he came across Rhodey or if he came across Peter. Heck, if he came across Morgan, right? They're like, oh my god, it's Tony, right? And then they realize, oh no, this is not the same Tony. Like the heartbreak that will come out of that, you know? So I think that there is a lot of potential to it. It's a question of whether or not it can work out. I think with the Russo brothers being involved this time and them returning, I think that's where, you know, I think it will work. Because let's be honest, the Russo... So yeah, I mean, post-Endgame with the Russo brothers, some of the projects haven't been the greatest. Like, I know I wasn't a big fan of... Because they did a couple projects. So they've done Extraction, they've done... There was one with Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling. I can't remember. It was like a Netflix action movie. Was not a big fan of that. Extraction, I will say, is actually pretty decent, especially the second one. Extraction 2 was actually really decent, but they haven't had a lot of big hits since Endgame. But even that being the case, when you look at their resume and just looking at the whole like all the stuff they've done for the Marvel universe with Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, they've all been hits, right? Like they haven't had any misses. And I think that this is where it's like, okay, maybe they're able to show the best of their capabilities with, you know, Marvel content. And even I think I swear to God, I swear, in the past they've said before, because when Endgame had came out, or I don't know, one of the two movies that came out, they had said that they were not gonna do any more Marvel movies after, you know, the two Avengers movies, because they were like, you know, because of how stressful it was, for one thing. You know, there you have all these actors, you have the most massive storyline, you're about to conclude a whole saga of, you know, these Marvel stories. It's like you have so much, you know, under your skin, just to like, not under your skin, but so much pressure, you know, that you're having to feel that. Like, I can see why they're so, you know, overwhelmed, where they're just like, you know what, we don't want to do any more Marvel movies in the meantime. If we do any Marvel movies, it's gonna have to be a Secret Wars storyline. Now we have Secret Wars coming out. Yes, there are a couple directors and writers that we had here and there between, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years, but a lot of them had dropped. There was even the Shang-Chi director. He had dropped out of the project because he wanted to focus on Shang-Chi too. So I think bringing back the Russo brothers, I think, was the right decision. Just because, again, I think there's a really great track record when it comes to their Marvel movies. They wanted to do Secret Wars, so that's another thing. And I would imagine that if they can just find the one thing that would really spark the interest for it and actually make the story work, it would have been RDJ as Doctor Doom, right? So I think that, you know, because of all these reasons, I think this movie will work out. Like, I'll keep my mind open to it. I'm not going to be too judgmental as I was last week, where I was, like, feeling confused. But now having, you know, processed all the details and understanding what was going on. Sorry, let me just get a quick drink, because my throat. Hold on. I need my throat for House of the Dragon tonight. But I think having now taken, like, you know, a reflection of this idea and this, yes, it is kind of a pivot, because we're no longer going with the whole King is a big bad. We're now going with the Doctor Doom is a big bad. I think it will still work out. I still do think that we might eventually have, like, a Victor Von Doom at some point, like an actual Victor Von Doom, one that's a bit more of a long term, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. But I will say that, yeah, I think that this idea will work. It'll be intriguing. I don't know if you want to know. Okay, it's best that I don't. I don't know if I should say. Okay, I'll say this. I think we will see RDJ before Doomsday. I've been speculating that he might show up in Fantastic Four. I will say that because what better way to introduce, you know, Doctor Doom than, you know, Fantastic Four, because that's basically, you know, his connection, right? Fantastic Four. I think that's... Yeah. I will say that RDJ will show up. I mean, let's be honest, like, suddenly, like, you know, because at that time, Fantastic Four was just about 2 days away from starting their filming, and then suddenly we hear RDJ is coming back. I think that this was done on purpose, because it does seem as though that RDJ quite possibly may actually be in the movie, so I think that's the reason why that they announced the RDJ thing, so that way they can be ahead of the game. So I think he will be in Fantastic Four before we see him in Doomsday, so we will at least see him one time before that.
Give the hype. Get the hype.
Give the hype. I think it's gonna be. It's not gonna be as if he's gonna be like an actual like main character or anything. I think it's gonna be more so like a post credits. Like, you know how Thanos was, right? Like how they did Thanos.
Yeah.
Same thing. I think it's gonna be the same thing. So, but yeah, that's just my opinion about that. I think, again, that was the big headline from last week. Now that I've processed it more, I feel like I'm a bit more comfortable with this idea now. Again, I still keep my skepticism and see how things work out, and then eventually watch Fantastic Four and see what that movie does. But I have to say, like, I'm now a bit more open to the idea. Like, now that I've looked into it, and now it's even so that you kind of seem a bit more open to the idea. Just the idea of, like, okay, what if Iron Man was actually a villain or something like that. Oh crap, my video just paused. Okay. But yeah, you keep on talking. I'm just gonna switch off my not my mic. Why did I switch off my mic?
Hey, just blame Debbie. It's okay. That's probably what's going on.
Debbie? No, my camera's video went off. But yeah, as I switch off my camera, let's switch to the final thing that I wanted to talk about. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, give me like 2 minutes. I'm going to just switch off something. Hold up. Thankfully, I have another charger. So I just have to gotta switch off some things. Okay. Alright, we're back. Okay, we're back. So, we'll talk about for another 15-20 minutes or so, because House of Dragon will be coming up soon. But, the last thing I wanted to talk about, and we spoke about this, right? So on Friday, and you actually didn't know about this, so, let me just give you a little bit of a rundown. So on Friday, I believe it was Variety who broke the news, but we got like the slate of Marvel movies coming in between 2026 and 2027, so nothing beyond that. Now, sorry, not 2026, sorry, 2025 to 2027. I keep forgetting that we're in 2024. So sorry. But we got a slate of the schedule for what it looks like the next 3 years of Marvel movies are going to be, right? Now, we know that this year we're only going to get Deadpool Wolverine because they kind of want to take a little bit more time to just to play a little bit of like a soft reset of like things, just of how, Marvel movies have been recently, where they have been, struggling. So let's just take this year to kind of just take things slow, take time to kind of reflect on, why the last few movies and shows haven't been doing well, and then let's take it from there to kind of fix, I would say not fix, but at least amend a lot of those issues, right? So now we know that next year we're going to have 3 movies. So as of right now, Captain America, Brave New World's coming out February of 2025. Then we have July of next year, Fantastic Four First Steps. That's now the official title. And we'll see. We'll see if we get this movie. We'll see. November 2025, Blade. So, and then for 2026. So this is what we know so far for 2026. There's a movie that's going to be coming out February 13th. Okay? Then we have May 2026. That one's confirmed to be Avengers Doomsday. Then we have another untitled movie for November 6th, 2026, which means that one movie got removed from the schedule for 2026. So now we now go from 4 to 3 movies. So something got canceled off from the looks of it. Or maybe they're going to push it off to a different time. Who knows? We'll see. And then finally, 2027, we have Avengers Secret Wars in May 2027. And then we have 2 other entitled movies coming out in July of 2027 and November of 2027. So we're kind of seeing where a lot of the movies are coming out. Like there's a pattern there. But so first things first, we'll see if Blade comes out. You know that joke? The joke that Wesley Snipes was like, yeah, there's been just one Blade and there's only ever going to be one Blade, and then Deadpool gives that stare. We'll see. Because now, I will say this, like, right now Fantastic Four is filming, right? So Fantastic Four is right now filming. So that means, and the movie's supposed to be coming out next year, 2024. So, 2025, sorry. So that means that there's a little bit more time for Blade to get their shit together, right? And somehow start filming at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. That's currently what the schedule is looking like. Like, that's been the update for the movie so far. Like, the last few months, that's been the update. Like, okay, so the Blade's supposed to be filming at some point at the end of this year, beginning next year, although I believe they just lost the director again, so it's like, okay, what do we do now? So, like, a lot, like, I have to say, like, I've never seen, Marvel Studios be so stumped with a movie in a way that we've seen with Blade. The movie was announced back in 2019 at SDCC. Most of the films that they had, had announced at that point between that time and now have been released or have at least been in production, except for Blade. Blade has been the most delayed movie for Marvel Studios, and I have to say, like, I there's now been a joke out of this, right? It's like, will we get Blade ever? We're just not at this point. I'm at a point where it's like I won't believe it till I see the first trailer. You know what I'm saying? I won't believe it until I see the first trailer. I would love to see Mahershala Ali as Blade, though. I would love to see him. I just don't understand why. I mean, yes, I do understand why, because they've had so many rewrites and so many directors come in and out. Like, we know the reason why, but the question is, will Blade still stick around for the 2025 schedule? What do you think?
I feel like they have to figure out what they're gonna, if they can fit it in, like, to the timeline kind of thing. Like, they gotta figure out, I feel like they gotta figure out what they're gonna do with Doomsday, like, that storyline. And then if they're like, okay, how do we flip Blade instead? Like, is he gonna be, like, a one-off, Because, like, you know how Marvel fans are. It's like, you do it something, it has to be, it's almost like Taylor Swift fans. It's like, all right, what does this Easter egg mean, Yeah. It's like, what does all of this connect to? So, I feel like with the Russo brothers coming back, it's like, all right, do we have a plan for the big movies? And then we'll see what happens. But I think also right now their focus is Fantastic Four because of how the second one flopped. The second,
the first one. Reboot, the reboot,
how that one just, like, completely nobody liked. I feel like that's, like, their main focus right now is, like, all right, we have to make sure that this one's good. So,
and I hope so, because, like, I mean, the cast looks pretty,
cast
good.
Looks great.
I love Pedro Pascal. I love Vanessa Kirby. Joseph Quinn. Oh my god. I mean, I hope maybe we might see him at MegaCon. Who knows? Maybe. And then of course Iban. I can't remember his last name, but Iban, the guy from The Bear. Yep. Yes. Great. I can't wait to see that movie. Like, I really have my fingers crossed it will work. I think they showed a test footage of Galactus at Hall H. And there's been a leak of that. So if that's kind of what they're aiming for, we got some good news. But I think you have a valid point. It's like, well, I think I will say this, that I don't think Blade necessarily has to be in line with what's going on with the MCU and what's going on with the multiverse storyline. I think it could still be its own thing, because technically speaking, Blade is, like, isn't he like a vampire hunter or something?
Yeah.
Or, like, so we know for a fact that movie's gonna be R-rated, so that's gonna be the second R-rated movie. And now seeing Deadpool Wolverine, I hope they stick to that, because I don't think that movie's gonna work unless it is, very violent.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna be the case right there. As I said, I think it's a matter of if they can get their shit together between now and if they can reach that, that deadline, like that big deadline that is January 2025. If they can make that deadline, then I think that there is a chance that the movie will still come out. But again, I won't believe it till I see the first trailer, right? So unless that first trailer drops, I don't know if we're gonna still get that movie, because that's been, like, that movie has been such a whole mess for the MCU. Like, again, I've never seen something like this out of the MCU where they've delayed a movie this far along after announcing it. Again, I really want to see it just because I love Mahershala Ali. You have a 2-time winning two-time Oscar-winning actor to play Blade, and he's the one who pitched this idea of doing Blade. So it's like, hopefully things will. I think we actually did see Blade though. Didn't we have? Wasn't there like a movie where he showed up in like a post-credit? Pretty sure he showed up in a post-credit.
I don't remember.
I think it would have been Quantumania, if anything. Because Quantumania is the one I've not seen, like, multiple times. If I swear, he did show up. I think he did show up as... No, we hear Blade in Internals. Remember? So remember
we
Kid
did?
So, you know, in the post-credit for Eternals, Kit Harington's character, Black Knight.
Yeah.
So he goes to, like this kind of, like, this tubey thingy, and he sees a sword, and then and then you can hear off voice, Mahershala's voice.
Oh.
Do you not remember that?
No.
I thought you would have recognized. That was Mahershala Ali. So I think there's been rumors about a possible like Sons of. I think something about like a Sons kind of storyline. I don't know what the team is called because that would mean because we had Moon Knight, then we had Black Knight, and then if Blade is gonna show up, then that's gonna create a whole team right there. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
I forgot about Moon Knight.
Yeah, I know, right? It's been so long.
Wow.
It's been so long.
I forgot that was a show.
That's been so long. I know. It's like, oh. But, what were we talking about? Yeah, so we're gonna have to see about Blade and see if that comes out. But apparently there was supposed to be like a team-up movie because of the fact that we saw Black Knight, that we saw Moon Knight, that we saw Blade, that this is supposed to set up a team. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We're gonna have to see. So, again, I won't believe it till I see the first trailer. It's gonna be my deal with that. And then I would say that I think the last bit I want to talk about was the movies like that are untitled at the moment. So we have 4 that are untitled. We have the February 2026, the November 2026, and then July 2027 and November 2027. So there has been a lot of discussion in the Marvel sphere with fans, right? Like, of course, speculation of what those 4 movies will be, because we already know what. So next year, all the movies are set. Then we also have the 2 Avengers movies, so those are set. Now it's a matter of, okay, what are these 4 mystery movies? Because of course, I think one reason why we haven't gotten the 4 movies is one, just so that I think Kevin Feige is just taking it a little bit more safe because of what happened with Blade. So rather than just announcing it, let's just see if there's like. If he's like 100% confident that, okay, this is all gonna happen moving forward, there won't be any more of these, the setbacks and everything. If we can have a solid foundation of the plan in mind, I think he'll announce that. Or he might be holding it off till D23 because D23 is actually happening at the end of this month, I believe. And
true.
I do believe they're gonna be talking about Daredevil stuff because Daredevil's supposed to be coming out. Yeah, Daredevil's supposed to be premiering early next year, right in between like right after Captain America Brave New World. So cool. Yeah, and I can't wait. I love Daredevil. I have to tell you, if they're gonna because that one also had to deal with refilming too. That whole show got like reshot. Like they redid everything. They redid everything from scratch. So that tells you that, okay, now that Kevin Feige is back as the head. Now he has the full creative control again after Bob Iger came back. It's like, okay, he's now trying to fix everything, right? He's trying to amend everything. He did that with Captain America, Brave New World. Now he's done that with Daredevil. Now he's just trying to get everything back on track, right? So, again, I don't want to talk about the TV stuff right now, but aside from the fact that, again, we're probably going to get a premiere date for Daredevil, and I cannot wait for that. I'm excited. But I think the main question I wanted to ask is, we have 4 movies that we have yet to have an idea of what they are, right? One of them is going to be right before Avengers Doomsday. And then there's going to be one in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. And then there's going to be 2 right after Secret Wars. So I've been reading the whole internet sphere, but I want to ask you, like, do you have any guesses as to what you think those 4 movies, those 4 mystery movies could be? Right? So one is before Doomsday, one is in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, and then the next 2 are going to be right after Secret Wars. Like, do you think you have a guess on what those 4 movies could be? Especially now, if you are aware of some the rumors and all that sort of stuff.
I've not heard any rumors. I know nothing. I did just look up like the timeline. I see the article you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I really no clue, zero clue what could be done.
I mean, is there anything in particular that you think that, maybe would work? Because again, we're going into the multiverse, right? With what movies that we've had so far, and which movies and some of the movies that we've seen so far, which one do you think would make sense in, in making up some of the slate here? Do you think there's, like, just any guess? You can even make an educated guess, like, anything that you feel like could make up the 4.
I really don't know. I just want Wanda back. It's all I kind of want in my life.
Wanda? No, I'm telling you, man.
And I want Miss Marvel. Those are, like, my people,
I'm telling you. I'm telling you, I really want a Scarlet Witch movie so bad. I cannot tell you how badly I want that. I think a lot of people want a Scarlet Witch movie really bad. But there's gonna be a Vision Quest show, apparently.
Vision Quest?
Yeah, that's happening apparently.
Interesting.
I don't know, but again, I'm like diverting from our actual, or divesting from our actual discussion. But here's the thing: I think I have some theories as to what these movies could be. Mm-hmm. I think we will have a Doctor Strange 3.
Doctor Strange 3?
Yeah. Because remember
how the second one ended.
Well, remember at the end so he got the third eye, and then he meets Clea, and apparently she comes and picks up.
Because of she has the ring in Deadpool Wolverine? Is that why?
No, incursion.
Never mind.
It's incursion.
Nope. You said a word that I don't actually know.
So in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, they talk about incursions and how when you mess up the dimensions, right, it causes like a collision between multiple dimensions, and it causes this collision, like it causes time and space to collapse. That's why the Illuminati had to go and claim and bring Doctor Strange, like the sacred timelines Doctor Strange, to get him to stop being stupid about the whole incursion shit, because he was causing the risk of the incursion. So that's why Clea comes in and picks him up from his sacred timeline to get him to fix the incursion. That's how that movie ended.
Got it.
That's why I think we were going to have a Doctor Strange 3 for that big reason, because of the incursion situation. If they're going to still stick to the multiverse storyline, especially with the whole Doomsday situation, I think that needs to be addressed with the whole Doctor Strange thing. I think Doctor Strange is going to be one of the key characters going into the Avengers movies, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm saying. Doctor Strange 3 is probably the most likely of the 4. I could be wrong. Who knows? They could also be original movies for all we know. But I think when we look in the past and seeing what we've seen so far, I think Doctor Strange 3 makes the most sense as one of the 4 in the lineup.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's one. The one in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, that one is really tough, because it's like, that means that this could be a movie that could hit in between, or it could just be its own kind of thing. I don't know. It's really hard to say. I think we might have a Shang-Chi 2, because I've been hearing so much about Shang-Chi 2 and compared to everything else I've seen so far, because Simu Liu has been talking about, Shang-Chi 2 is still happening. The director of Shang-Chi 2 has, he literally, dropped out of the Avengers movie, one of the Avengers movies, so that he can focus on Shang-Chi 2. So I think Shang-Chi 2 is going to be another one. I just can't say which one of the 3. I think it might be after Secret Wars, in my opinion, but also with the whole Rings of Power, considering the fact that he has 10 rings, and how that can also be very important to the multiverse timeline situation, that's a possibility. But then again, we're not having King again. King is done. We're not having King back. So it's like the whole idea of the 10 rings and Kamala's bangles, it's like, okay, well, those won't be as important anymore to the storyline. So are we going to still have Shang-Chi 2 as one of 3 lineups? Who knows? Maybe. Possible. But I would say maybe Shang-Chi 2 could be a possibility as one of the 4 movies. And then another one, this is the one I've been seeing a lot of, and I can actually see some credibility to this, because this has been, brought up a couple times and has been teased. A possible X-Men movie.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? A possible X-Men movie. Again, this is a very interesting thing to mention, and this is why I was like, let me just hold off on any other thoughts about the Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds thing, because if we're going to see them ever come back in a much bigger in a very big capacity, I feel like it will be X-Men movie. And now that Disney and Marvel Studios has all the rights back, at least all the rights back of like the Fox Marvel characters back to them, an X-Men movie seems likely. Like we're probably gonna see a lot more X-Men characters moving forward because of the fact that we've got this exposition. So I think that if we're going to see, and I think this is kind of pointing to, you know, Kevin Feige's comment that I was mentioning about earlier, how he's like, oh, we're not gonna look for a Wolverine immediately. I think that could be a sign that maybe we might have an X-Men movie, right? And this might lead into something like, you know, bringing in like Deadpool and Wolverine to the screen. Possible. Who knows? Maybe. I might be wrong. You know? And especially, again, with the whole Doomsday Secret War situation, it's like, okay, we don't know what the extent of the consequences of what's going to happen from those events. So I think X-Men is very possible. And if that's possible, then who knows? We might even get a Scarlet Witch movie. I think we must get a Scarlet Witch movie. I must get one. I need one. I love Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. She has done such a spectacular job with that character. And then the fourth movie, man, I don't even know what to say. I feel like if there is a possible, whatever could be the fourth movie, it could be like Spider-Man 4, because that's something that, you know, they have been discussing is, you know, in development, because apparently Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige have been talking about the scripts for it, so so they're working on the script, and Tom Holland is more than happy to come back. So that's a possibility as well. Spider-Man 4 could be one of the 4. I think it's really tough at this point. It's just like, because of so much of this pivoting from Kang Dynasty to Doomsday, it's like it's just so hard to pinpoint what's going to happen in the movie, what they're going to do with these 4 movies. I mean, again, we might get some details at D23. Maybe that's why he held off on those, because he wanted to focus on at least the stuff for next year. And then, of course, the big question with Avengers movies. But maybe D23 we might get some answers. Who knows? Or maybe he might just hold them off until a much different time and just keep D23 to just the shows. Because I know that, because he didn't actually get to touch on the shows at D23, right? At SDCC. So maybe SDCC was just more focused on the movies, and D23 is going to be focused on the shows, and therefore we probably might not even get any details about the last 4 movies until maybe not till like beginning next year. Who knows? You know? So, but yeah, that was the whole big update from Friday. I think after that, we're now basically on top of the news for Marvel stuff. I guess you can say it's Marvel stuff. But I think that just about wraps up everything that we have to talk about. We talked about Deadpool Wolverine. We went on a whole discussion about that. We spoke about the whole SDCC announcement with RDJ and Doomsday and everything like that. We spoke about that, and then we briefly were able to talk about the schedules and what we having in between 2025 to 2027. It looks like we're going to have, again, we're going to have to see how the MCU does moving forward, and whether or not we're going to see consistency with the content and the quality of the content moving forward. Again, the next project we're going to see, of course, is going to be Africa All Along. I'm going to go see it. I'm actually very intrigued to see it. And then, of course, the next movie is going to be Captain America Brave New World. So we're just going to have to wait and see how things move forward with the MCU now that, you know, Deadpool Wolverine is now out. And that one is really taking the world by storm. Considering the fact that I have Debbie right behind me. It actually stopped raining, by the way. It stopped raining, but yeah, I think right now things are finally, and I will say this, I think, just to close this up, I will say that I think, in my opinion right now, I will say that things are finally starting to get back on track. I hope it remains on track. I hope we start to see this consistency again moving forward, that we're finally getting back the MCU that we loved and, you know, followed for so long. I hope that we get to see a lot more of these cinematic events, because I think what makes MCU movies so special is that they are cinematic. We're coming to a theater where, you know, I was about to quote Nicole Kidman.
You're about to quote, yeah. Okay, so the AMC quote, go.
I was like, wait a second, I'm about to quote Nicole. But I will say that, you know, just coming to the theater and having all these people you know, coming together, watching something that, you know, having something in common with everyone in the, you know, in the auditorium, in the theater, being like, okay, we're all here to see this really special movie from the MCU. I mean, I remember like this used to be a consistent, like it used to be like a whole event, like before Endgame, right? Like every movie,
Yep.
every MCU movie was like an event. So that it would always almost be fully booked, and then but then post Endgame, like after a couple of movies and seeing kind of just the decline, right? It's like I haven't experienced that consistency where each MCU movie is, you know, a cinematic event in a long time. And I hope that that would eventually, I think moving forward, again, after Deadpool Wolverine, that this means that we'll see more of that, you know, that phenomenon coming back. But yeah, that's all I had to say about everything that we spoke about tonight. It was great having you here. Before we close off this discussion, is there anything else? Is there anything that you want to like discuss in general about the MCU, Marvel, anything that you feel like we did not touch on that maybe you want to kind of touch on it very quickly before we close off things, or
Not really. I mean, I feel like we covered a lot. You gave me a lot of knowledge too, because like I mean, you know way more than I do about anything.
Well, that's my job.
That's true. That is your job. But no, I'm excited to see what happens, because I feel like you said, like there hasn't been big movies when it comes to Marvels. Everyone goes to theaters, you know. It's more like, you know, unlike you, I'm a very big horror gal, so that's like kind of what's taking over right now. And it's like, but I missed that whole, like, you know, remember when like Endgame came out, Infinity War, you know, or even like if you look at the Star Wars franchise, when like those movies were coming out, you know, everyone's just so excited. So I'm hoping that Marvel looks at that and it's like, all right, you know, we need this excitement back as like the world, you know. Yeah, everyone looks forward to this, so this is what humanity needs right now.
Exactly, right? So no, very great point. I hope that ends up becoming the case too, because we kind of need it. And I feel like we're finally at a point now where, again, after with the whole decline with, you know, with theaters and how there's been a struggle with box office, especially with the pandemic and then of course the strikes, it looks like we're finally getting back on track, just movie wise. Like, you know, everything, like movies are starting to really become big again, becoming blockbusters again, and I hope that that continues to be the case moving forward, because I feel like we are now at a point where we're finally recovering from that, and now getting a little bit more of that normalcy again. So but yeah, I think that's all we have to say about anything. Is there anything you want to say before we close off, or
I just hope one day we figure out why Thor was crying. I mean, Ryan Reynolds kind of like gave the thing, and I mean, I texted you like the comment of like, you know, maybe he like Thor didn't know that Deadpool could regenerate, and I'm like, I get, but I like hope that like one day gets solved, you know, like 10 years from now he's just callback.
Imagine that's we're gonna get that answer, I bet, in Secret Wars, maybe. Remember, remember they did this whole thing with Captain America back in what was it, Age of Ultron, where he was able to shift Mjolnir.
Oh yeah, when he shifted the hammer. The hammer.
Mjolnir, yeah, the hammer. And then I was like, I remember like literally like 30 minutes before the movie, I was like, imagine if, you know, Captain America was able to hold that hammer, and then boom, like that ending. Yeah. I literally lost my shit. I remember losing my shit. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. That's all you have to say about, you know, our discussion here. I have to say, like, it was great having you here, because I feel like I've been wanting to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe for such a long time. And I feel like this is like the perfect way to kind of get ourselves into discussing about this. I hope you had a lot of fun about this, because like I know, again, this is the first time I've been doing this in like a long time. Like I haven't done this since like I started this channel, and I think we were just talking about it, like beforehand, like we should do more of these. But if you want to do more of these, let me know. Like, I mean, I had just a blast talking about this. It's probably the most productive I have been in talking about any topic. But yeah, it was great having you here. Like, hopefully, I mean, I'm gonna put this up on YouTube, of course. Like the like I'll put up the actual live on YouTube at some point. But yeah, I mean, thank you for coming here. If you do you want to come, if you want to come back, we can talk about, maybe doing this like as a regular bit. I know we were just talking about this about a couple minutes ago or during that
Hmm.
break, but yeah, again, thank you so much for coming. Again, what a really great way to kind of just talk about Deadpool, and again, with someone like you who, who I've known, we've talked about Marvel and everything for such a long time. So it was great having you here. Um, I
Me.
I hope you had a great time.
It
Just
was
discuss.
very fun.
It was really fun. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. I hope you have a good dinner. I know you're somewhere back home because I know you had a really long trip. And again, if you want to continue doing this, I'm gonna tell you right now today, House of Dragon is I have the final episode of House of Dragon. So after tonight, I'm like free Sunday nights now. So if you want to make this like a regular thing, I'm more than happy to do it. So we can discuss that at a later time. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you everyone who did join this discussion. I hope we had a blast talking about Marvel and everything like that. I'll try to figure out some kinks, because I know this is actually my first one in a long time. But in the future, hopefully we get to incorporate some other stuff as well. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Marvel in general. Deadpool, Wolverine, SDCC, and just Marvel Slate in general. I hope everyone has a good night. That's me signing off. Thank you all for coming. I don't know if you want to give a goodbye or something like that, Maya, but
Bye. Thanks for watching.
thank you everyone. Nice seeing y'all. See y'all probably in a couple hours with House of Dragon. But yeah,